Sylvia Likens, a 16-year-old girl from Indianapolis, Indiana, became the tragic victim of one of the most disturbing and brutal crimes in American history. Her story is one of betrayal, cruelty, and the chilling horror of a life cut short by the very people who should have protected her. In 1965, Sylvia and her younger sister, Jenny, were placed into the care of Gertrude Banaszewski, a woman in her 30s, after their parents were unable to care for them due to financial difficulties. The Likens girls were sent to live with Gertrude and her family in the hope that it would be a temporary arrangement. However, this decision would prove to be a catastrophic mistake. Gertrude Banaszewski was a troubled woman. She had 5 children of her own and was facing her own struggles, including financial instability and personal emotional issues. She was known to be bitter and resentful, particularly toward the 2 girls she was asked to care for. Initially, things seemed okay for Sylvia and Jenny, but over time, Gertrude's behavior toward them became increasingly hostile. Gertrude's resentment toward Sylvia in particular grew as she felt that the girl was disrespectful and unruly, which couldn't have been further from the truth. Sylvia, though quiet and well-behaved, became the target of an escalating campaign of cruelty, largely fueled by Gertrude's own frustration and twisted mindset. Gertrude began to emotionally abuse Sylvia, calling her names and subjecting her to verbal assaults. Soon the abuse escalated further. Gertrude began enlisting the help of her children and even neighborhood children, who joined in tormenting Sylvia. They would taunt her, beat her, and lock her in the basement. At one point, they forced Sylvia to eat feces as a punishment for minor infractions. These acts of cruelty were not isolated incidents, they became routine. The abuse was not limited to physical violence. Sylvia was often forced to write a note claiming she had run away and was hiding out, further isolating her from the world. No one in the neighborhood suspected the extent of the abuse Sylvia was enduring behind the closed doors of the Banaszewski home. The neighbors saw Sylvia only as a troubled, unruly child, but they had no idea that the true horrors she was experiencing were so much worse. As the days went on, Sylvia's condition worsened. She began to lose weight. Her body was covered in bruises, and she was so weak from the beatings that she could barely move. Gertrude and the other children took a sadistic pleasure in the pain they inflicted upon her, showing no remorse. Eventually, Sylvia became unable to stand or speak, and on October 26, 1965, after enduring weeks of torture, she died from her injuries. Gertrude Banaszewski, along with her oldest son John and several other children, were arrested for their roles in Sylvia's death. The evidence of their actions was so overwhelming that the court proceedings became a public spectacle. Gertrude, despite initially denying her involvement, was found guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. Her children, including John, who had actively participated in the abuse, were also convicted, although they received lesser sentences due to their ages. The case shocked the nation and led to widespread outrage. Sylvia Likens became a symbol of the vulnerability of children in abusive environments, and her death prompted changes in how child abuse cases were handled. The story of Sylvia's suffering would stay with the public for decades to come, a chilling reminder of how evil can manifest behind closed doors.